Welcome to the Self-Publishing School podcast. This is the podcast to listen to if you're an aspiring writer or an author who wants to be more successful. On this show, you'll learn how to write and launch a book successfully, all from the top authors and people just like you who are doing it at the highest level. I'm your host, Chandler Bolt, the founder of Self-Publishing School, the author of the book called Published, and the CEO of selfpublishing.com. For free training on how to publish a book that sells 10,000 copies, go to selfpublishing.com/free training. Hey everybody, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Russell Brunson. So let me tell you a little bit about Russell. Russell started his first online company while he was wrestling at Boise State University. Within a year of graduating, he sold over $1 million worth of his own products and services from his basement. For over 12 years now, Russell has been starting and scaling companies online, and he owns a software company called ClickFunnels. He owns a supplement company, a coaching company, and is one of the top super affiliates in the world. .com Secrets, his company, and also the title of his book was created to help entrepreneurs around the world start, promote, and grow their companies online. And Russell lives in Boise, Idaho, with his wife, Collette, and their 5 children. Russell, welcome, man.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you. So first off, I want to start, you had this recent book launch, which we're going to talk all about in this interview, and especially the back end, monetizing, all that good stuff. But for starters, you sold $1 million worth of products. So you had a lot of things going for you. ClickFunnels, a lot going on. Why a book?
Oh, man. That's a good question. It was one of those things where when I first got started, I heard somebody, I can't remember who, probably someone in your series talking about like, you need a book. And I was like sold on the idea I needed a book. So I tried to start writing a book, man, probably 10 years ago. And I tried. It's hard. Like it was really hard for me. And I kept starting one and not finishing it. And then about 2 years ago, one of my buddies, he's a chiropractor, and we were out to eat somewhere, we're hanging out. And he was like, dude, how come everybody who's awesome has a book except for you? And I'm like, you're right. Like I really I just need to do it. Like it has to happen now. And I'm grateful that it took me that long though. Cause I feel like with a book, like you have to earn a book. Like it's not something that I'm going to go write a book. Like you have to earn it from like your experience from doing stuff. And when I look back, I don't think I was ready for it back then. I don't think I had the scars and the battle wounds you need to really, have a good book. And so I started putting it together, and it was a hard process. Like to be 100% honest, it wasn't the easiest thing, but I wanted to write a good book too. Some people don't write good books, and I wanted to write a really good book, and something that gave everything that I do and what I believe and what we show people in a easy to understand format. And so, and I knew that we had some cool things coming up like ClickFunnels and like some other things. And I thought that it would be a really good introduction into the other things we have, right? Like to explain to someone like, why do you need a funnel and how do you do funnel? Like that's like a hard concept to do. And so like, how do you get that information in someone's hands so they're excited by it? And I thought a book is like the right mechanism to get somebody inspired and excited about the concept. And so that's kind of why we decided to finally do it. And it's been kind of a roller coaster ride since, but definitely worth it for sure.
I'm curious, what were some of the ideas that you had that you started and stopped on books?
I should find like all the old titles. We kept changing it every time. And part of it was like really tied to like what I was learning at the time. Like I remember learning about like information marketing, like you can create things and sell. I was like, this is the great. So I did that. We started that direction. I think one of them was like, don't dig for gold or something like that was the name of the product. And it was like, it had to do with that whole story about the gold rush. And so that was like one of them. And then I tried later when I started getting more interested in lead generation, getting people to do things, and sales, I kind of shifted towards that. And just, anyway, it kind of morphed until, yeah. And my biggest problem is that I also didn't want to write a book. Like you write it and then like it's obsolete like 6 months later. So it was like, we couldn't do any of the traffic stuff because it was so, those things changed so much. And I didn't want to like have to keep like making additions to my book. I wanted something that was evergreen. And it wasn't until we really started getting into that it was like, this is the core message that can stand the test of time, that'll be just as relevant today as it is 10 years from now. And that was kind of the thought behind it.
Got it. Now, what was it that gave you the kick in the pants to finally do it? Was it that conversation with the chiropractor? Like, did you decide at that dinner, hey, this is something I'm doing? Or did you think about it for a while? Like, what made you finally go all in and complete it?
No, it was that night. It's kind of funny. Like one of my friends, Brandon Bouchard, he's got a couple books and stuff. And we were actually talking. He's like, "You're different between you and Brandon. He's got a book." And I was like, "You're right, man. Like, I don't have a book. Like, that's just something you've got to have." And so that night, like, I went home. Like, we were eating at a Burger King. He had his 3 kids out of my 4 kids at the time, and they're just going nuts. Our wives were out like in a movie or something, and we're just like hanging out there, like watching the kids go crazy. I was like, "You're right. I've been saying this for 10 years. Like, it's happening." And so that night I went online. I was like, I need to find someone to help me with this because there's no way I'm going to just I need someone I can pay to like hold me accountable and push things forward. And so I went out and I started looking for somebody, and I found the right person, a lady named Julie, that just came and became like my partner in this book and just helped me to like push it forward. And like, whether I wanted to or not, and the times I was ready to just quit, she was like, "No, like you got to finish this." So it was awesome.
How long was the process of writing it?
For me, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so it took me about a year to do it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I wrote a whole bunch of it and then didn't like it. And then then I decided, I was like, if I'm going to do this, like I need to organize my thoughts better, because I was kind of going all over the place, and then we just deleted it all, right? So I was like, I'm going to do an event, because if I do an event, it's going to force me to organize everything. So we did a 3-day event that forced me now to really think like chronologically, like what would be the process. So I went and taught a 3-day event, recorded the whole thing, and then I had like, it was good, but then it was like, I think I need to move things around. And so I was able to shift around kind of the concepts. And then I felt like really secure, like this is what it needs to be. And then went and started writing from there. And then like I was almost done, we're like almost like the publishing phase. And I was listening to a podcast with Tim Ferriss and Neil Patel. No, not Neil Patel, Neil Strauss, about how they write books. And these guys are like, I don't know if you interviewed them, but they're like intense writing books. Like they spend like 3 or 4 years writing books. They write like, 5,000 pages, and they chop it down to like 500. And I was like, oh man. But one thing they told me is they said like one of the best things about their book was like by like cutting things out. And one night I was like, you know what? Like there are parts of my book that I don't love. And so I went that night and I just deleted like 3 chapters. And I was just like, first I was scared. And then afterwards I was like so liberated. Like those chapters were driving me crazy. Now they're gone. And it was just like the coolest thing. So anyway, but it took me about a year from when I started it till when the book actually launched and we started selling the books and getting them out there.
And so when you cut the chapters, then you didn't have enough, so then you had to write more? Or
I did have some gaps. Like I had some things like we talked about, like if you read the book, I talked about value ladders in one spot, and I started talking about funnels later on. And in my head, it made perfect sense. And as I started thinking about like there are 2 concepts that are similar, but there needs to be something to bridge that gap. So I had to write a chapter in the middle to then take like, how does this value ladder concept work with the sales funnel? How do you plug those 2 things together? So kind of made something to bridge those 2 thoughts. And anyway, it was kind of, all those things as you read it again, you're like, wait, this doesn't make sense in this context or in this order. And yeah.
Got it. So you took the time, took about a year, got a good book. Obviously something that helped people understand the concept of funnels. When we're looking at the business side of things, like what was the business purpose for the book?
Yeah. So for me, there are a lot of purposes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about kind of the funnel that we took people through, and it'll kind of help illustrate some of those things as well. But, one of it was the credibility piece, obviously, like that was a big thing. Second was lead generation. Like when we did it, we sold 25,000 copies of the book in a month. So we had 25,000 brand new customers that entered our world, which, we talk about numbers later, but that had a whole huge impact. And then what's a bigger motivation for me, you mentioned we have a software company that helps you, that is the tool that makes all this stuff possible, right? And so that's the bigger play for me, more than, we made a lot of upfront money from the whole thing, but the longer term is like getting people educated and using ClickFunnels as a tool is worth way more to me long term. And so it was a huge customer acquisition, not just for my coaching company, but for our software and getting people, because like with ClickFunnels, it's not something you're just like, oh, ClickFunnels, I'm in. You start doing something, right? You have to understand a couple core things. So it gave you, anyone that read the book, like you get it now. You're like, wow, like this is what I need. This is why I need it. This is how it all goes together. And it makes sense, right? And so that was some of the business purposes behind it initially when we started deciding to actually do it and invest the time and money to do it.
Got it. So it sounds like some of the main ones are authority and then drive into ClickFunnels. Were there anything else on that side?
And then driving into our high-end coaching programs. I mean, we had, I'm actually flying out Sunday night. I'm flying to a guy. He read the book, called me up, and wrote a check for $100,000 for me to come spend 2 days teaching the book to his staff. So it's like things like that just kind of like falling out of the air, which is really fun. So there's that, but we've also added a whole bunch of people. We have smaller coaching. We have a $12,000 a year and a $25,000 a year coaching program. And it's we filled up a whole nother mastermind group so far from that, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So it's fueling all those other sub businesses for sure.
That's awesome. Now, you talked about selling 25,000 copies in the first month, and I remember seeing pictures and stuff of the warehouse full of books and all. I mean, that's a lot of books and a lot of physical books to fulfill. So I want to dive a little bit into the marketing, then we'll really circle back and go deep into the back end funnel, monetizing all that. But on the marketing end, you did a big pre-sales push. Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of what that looked like?
Yeah. So we were trying to work with our publisher. We had like a publisher date. Like this is the date it goes live. And we wanted to pre-sell as many as we could before that date. So that way, they could all ship at the same time, and makes it look better for the different lists and stuff you're trying to get on, and so that's kind of what we're doing. So we did a 30-day pre-launch, and I didn't want to leave anything to chance. And so I actually won a Ferrari 2 years ago in a sales contest for a company that was launching. And so I had this Ferrari sitting in my garage, and I'm not really a car guy. So I was like, I'm going to give away my Ferrari to whoever can sell the most books, which is like a really fun thing, right? And I know most people can't do that. It's ridiculous, but I thought like, let's just do that. Like it'll be kind of a cool thing and it'll help drive the sales of it. Like I don't want to leave it to chance, right? So what we did, one of the concepts we did, and when you're looking at like how we marketed the book, there's a concept that I teach all my students and all of our coaching clients called the Dream 100, where we try to find like who are our Dream 100 partners who can sell stuff with us or for us, So I had this list of here's 100 of my dream clients, and I wrote a big huge package. I had a copy of the book in there. I had a T-shirt. I had like big old package, and we mailed it all. Well, for me, it's we have about 220 people on my Dream 100 list, right? So I sent 220 packages to everyone. They had the book, had a T-shirt, a bunch of stuff in the big old letter saying, "I'm giving away my Ferrari to whoever can give away the most copies of my book, and it's going to be amazing." Anyway, so we kind of like started the buzz 2 months or so before the book launch, and then people got excited and it was cool. I think it was fun for people because it was a free book. So it was kind of a fun offer to promote. Plus there's like this big prize, and we had a bunch of people competing and fighting for it, which made it more fun. And so that's kind of how it started. And then when the page went live, we did it. It was a free plus shipping book. So we didn't charge, I think we charged $7.95, I believe, shipping and handling on it. And that's how it kind of kicked off and started going, and people were fighting and battling to try to sell the most copies of the book, which is a great spot to be in on the other side of us trying to sell them. And that's kind of how the initial marketing campaign kind of launched.
Now, I remember seeing that just all over, and seeing just some hilarious things. I know, oh gosh, I'm forgetting who it is. Here in San Diego, Bacon Wrap Business, Brian Costanzo, he had some hilarious videos. I mean, and then there were just tons of videos, obviously, all around, and then people talking about the Ferrari and all that. So I know that created a huge buzz up front. Yeah. Besides the Ferrari and that contest, what else was in it for those affiliates in the Dream 100 for sending people to the book?
Yeah, I knew that like the big problem, like a big car contest, I've done a couple of them in my career. The biggest problem is like one or two people are going to win it, right? So you get a couple people who are like fighting for it, and everyone else is like, well, I'm not going to win it. So they don't want to try. So we got to figure out something else awesome to help them. So we, any one of the top 20 affiliates, we took them all to Vegas together so they could all hang out together. We took them dream car racing. So we all got to race Ferraris and Lamborghinis. And that was really a really cool process anyway. But that gave everyone like some incentive to come. And then we also paid out commissions. So we'll talk about the funnel in a minute. So we had a funnel, and the first 3 weeks of it, we paid out basically, I think it was 40 or 50% of anything that people bought inside of that funnel. And so they made commissions there. And then the last week we switched it over to like a CPA model, where it said for every book you give away, you just get a flat $20. And people went nuts with that. Like it was really cool. Like we were giving away, man, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a day in cash prizes. The cash basically for everyone, because every book they gave away, they got $20. Some people were doing 1,000 books a day, and we're just like, but luckily our funnel could sustain it, because we were actually averaging. I think when I was said and done, we were averaging I believe $32 we made for every free book we gave away from the funnel. So we weren't actually losing money, but it really motivated the affiliates and got people doing some crazy things, or like some of the videos are just nuts what people are doing to give away books, and which is so much fun. Like every morning I wake up and there's like 50 people tagging me, like with like whatever their crazy idea was. And yeah, it was so much fun.
That's hilarious. So did you wait, and I'm curious why you switched over from the percentage model to the CPA model. Did you wait and see how it was dialed in and then figure out what you could afford? Or was there a different reason? Did you plan that all along? Like, how was that?
Yeah, it was a little bit of all that. Like we've done free book offers in the past, and we knew we could probably handle $20 CPA and without going in the hole at all. But we wanted to have a fun reason people to promote at the end of the contest, because it's hard. The hardest thing is like getting people really excited. Like, why should you promote some more? Why should they be buying more ads? Like, what's the reason? And so if we started that way, then we lost the ability to be like, oh, here's this cool new thing, and so it just kind of it was more of, I think from day one we knew we were going to do that. So part of it was testing to make sure that like the funnel actually was making money before we just give away $20, and then partially was just so we had a really cool like way to end it out and to close out that little contest.
So what percentage would you say of pre-sales were off of affiliates versus off of other traffic, your internal lists, all that stuff?
That's a good question. I would say that probably a fifth of the books that we sold from our own traffic and our own promotions, our own lists. So probably 5,000 or 6,000 that were based on that. And then the other 20,000 or so came from affiliates. And we had affiliates, all sorts of affiliates. Some that had big email lists, like Jeff Walker ended up winning. He's had a big email list. Guys like Todd Brown took second place. And man, he had the coolest strategy. He was doing webinars and hangouts and Facebook ads and Google ads and YouTube ads. And like, he was like multi-pronged approach, hitting it from every single angle. In fact, he ended up losing by like, I think 30 books at the end is all he lost by. It was like, I felt so bad. He did awesome. But, and some affiliates, you just, everyone had a kind of different strategy. So it was cool because it made us look like we were everywhere, even though we weren't everywhere. Like we were doing a lot, like we were pushing it as hard as we could on our side, but there was just people coming from so many other directions doing stuff. It made it look like everywhere you looked, we were somewhere, and it was fun watching the creativity from our affiliates on it.
And what were some of the things that you guys were doing personally to push the book?
We were doing all sorts of, we were trying a lot of like more traditional strategies too. Like we were doing radio interviews, podcast interviews, which I'd never really done that before. And that worked really good. We had, I was on the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast, and he sold like 850 copies of the book just from one little interview. That was like, he does like one a day. So just like one little blurb, but that fast we got like many. And so we were doing a lot of those kind of things. We were doing, what else were we doing? Just, a little bit of everything. Going back to like, we did some direct mail stuff. We were dropping postcards to keep people's buyer lists. We were doing, just hitting from as many different angles as possible. In fact, it was funny because we had people coming back like, how in the world did you get my physical address? Like I had postcards popping in my mail for your book. I was like, we had people that wouldn't, or they couldn't mail their email list. I was like, well, how about we send a postcard to all of your physical buyers? I'll cover the printing and the cost, and you just send your Excel sheet of your buyers to the post office, and we'll mail postcards. And like, all right, why not? And so we were just hitting people from all sorts of angles. It was fun.
Wow, that's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, Chandler Bolt here. I hope you're loving this episode so far. It's time to go from inspiration to implementation. All right, so if you've learned something, we want to help you implement what you've learned with your book. So what I want you to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a publishing consultation with one of the experts on my team. We'll talk about your goals for your book, your dreams, your challenges, your next steps, and we'll start putting together a plan. All right, so go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a call with the team. Let's see how we can help with your book. It's time to implement.
So those are people with big lists that just couldn't or wouldn't for some reason mail their email lists.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens all the time, like bad timing, or they just don't want to promote something else, whatever. So, but most of them have a buyer list. And so I just say, hey, you got a buyer list. I will pay for the printing, the shipping, everything. I'll put your affiliate link on the postcard. All you have to do is export your buyers, email the CSV file to this third-party mailing house. I don't even see the list. I'll mail postcards to them and they'll ship it out and you'll get paid commissions. And people, like, it's like, why would someone say no to that? There's no logical reason. You just say yes, right?
Yeah, that's great. Where'd you come up with that idea?
When I got started online, like I was like the internet nerd, and then I joined like the whole Dan Kennedy world and Bill Glazer world, and just those guys like drilled direct response, like hardcore marketing in my head for 10 years. And so it's funny, like nowadays I talk to internet guys and I feel like I'm more of like an offline guy than an internet guy just because of my brainwashing all those years. But we used to do that kind of things with Bill Glazer all the time, like because they had really strict rules on what they promote and not promote. And so we used to do promotions all the time, just their physical list, because he was way more open to that. And so like he would do that to our list. Like he would pay for direct mail piece to go to my buyer list, and then I get affiliate commissions on. He'd cover everything, and then I do the same thing to his list. We mail out stuff physically to his, and we just kind of swap on that. And we did that for years, and it was awesome.
So did you learn your direct mail chops from Dan Kennedy and those guys?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Bill Glazer. So he was when I joined GKIC, Bill Glazer was like my mentor for like 6 or 7 years. He still is. I look at him as like my marketing dad. And he used to like, we'd go to the meetings and he'd like hold up letters. He's like, "Hey Russell, you ever seen one of these before? This is called sales letter. This is direct mail." And he used to rag on me all the time, but definitely I'm a big believer in that now and a big fan of it.
So is that how you got Dan Kennedy to write the foreword for your book?
Yeah. Basically paid him a whole bunch of money for a lot of years. And then no, but like, yeah, we were actually talking about maybe doing a book together. And I said, "Hey, I've got a marketing book like I'm doing and just love for you to look at it." He was like, "Russell, I don't like internet marketing books. Like you guys are all, what do you call them? You guys are all like charlatans and wizards and weird things. I don't believe in it." I was like, "I know, but like, I promise my book's different." So I sent it to him. And of course with Dan, you can't like email it to him. He does not have a physical email address. You have to fax it. So I had to like print the whole thing and then like fax scan it to him. And he gets it, like it goes to his assistant and then puts it in a box, and she FedExes it to him. Then he gets it, opens it up, reads the whole thing. He types out, I think on a typewriter or something, types out the forward, and then FedExes it back to his assistant, who then overnighted it to me. And I was like, "Can you just email it to me?" She's like, "We don't do email in our office." I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, there's no way." And so like, yeah, so I had to go then like retype it from like this fax thing, retype the whole thing so I could have a digital version of it. It was ridiculous.
That's hilarious.
That's how it works in that world. So
oh, that's great. How'd you get Tony Robbins to do a blurb for the book?
So Tony is like by far the coolest man on earth, right? And so been blessed a couple of years ago. Some of my friends, Mike Koenig, a couple of guys introduced me to him. And we kind of were going to do a project back then together. He just launched like this front end thing, and we're going to help build out a sales team for him. And it never actually materialized for some reason. And then he invited me to come speak at one of his events. So I spoke there. So kind of just got to know him and done some little consulting for his company a couple of times. And then he basically, when I got done, I actually asked him initially, I'm like, "Hey, would you be willing to write the forward for the book?" And he said, "Actually, I'm writing my book right now. I wish I could, but I don't have time." But he's like, "I would love to look it out." So I gave it to him, and he's like, "This is good stuff." And he's like, here's something you can use. So he gave me kind of a quote. I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." So yeah, that's what we use. In fact, what's cool is, I don't know if I can probably share this publicly. We're flying out next month to the whole book funnel process we're talking about now. We're applying it for he did a free plus shipping book launch earlier this year. And he just brought us, and we're coming in, we're flying our whole team down there in August, and we're building out a whole book funnel for him through ClickFunnels and stuff, which is gonna be cool. So anyway, but yeah, he's amazing. Anything he does, I'm like just grateful. So yeah, he wrote a little blurb and it was amazing.
That's awesome. Now let's go back to what you were talking about, which was the direct mail pieces, the internal lists, all the different things you guys did to promote on your side beyond affiliates. Out of all those things that you guys did, which would you say was the most effective, moved the most books?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, obviously just our own internal list is, it's your warm audience who knows you and loves you. So that's a big part of it. What was the most effective? Man, stuff was happening so fast. We didn't do a lot of like close testing on sources. It was more like we had 30-day windows for throwing up. I don't know what would exactly be the most effective. I mean, I think honestly the most effective was, you said without affiliates, but it was the affiliate strategy. It was like, every like 3 weeks we mailed all the affiliates and something else, or excuse me, every 2 weeks, something else in the mail. So I didn't want to forget about promotion. So I did the book and t-shirt first. And then like 2 weeks later, I mailed them all a Ferrari keychain. And then another week later, I sent the picture with me holding a $20 bill, talking about the $20 bill contest. So like I was direct mailing my Dream 100. Like I think that was the most effective strategy of all, because people who had never promoted for us ever, all of a sudden, like after the first message they didn't, then the second message they did, or the third or something, but it kept like, it's just hard to get affiliates, especially good affiliates, to pay attention nowadays, right? Email doesn't work, Facebook, like nothing works unless you're just like in front of them. And so we just ship packages to them. In fact, about once a month, we send a package to my Dream 100. And sometimes it's just like last month, we just sent them all a gift just saying you guys are awesome. And then this month we'll be sending them something, asking them to promote a webinar, and just, we're consistently marketing to them. I think that's the best marketing strategy, is finding your potential partners and building out a consistent campaign to them. Because each one of those people could turn into, in some cases, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 books. And so, yeah.
Got it. So are these affiliates mostly people who have promoted for you in the past, or are some of them new?
Our top two affiliates had never promoted me ever in their life. So Jeff Walker and Todd Brown never promoted for us before. I'd say in our top 20, about half of them probably had. The other half were just new people who never.
So how'd you get the new people's addresses?
This is my secret. You go on Facebook and you're like, hey man, I got a gift for you. What's the best place to send it? And they always send back their address. It's awesome. Nobody ever says no to a gift. That's that's honestly what we did. We spent probably a month. We built out a list of like everyone we could dream of that would be like our ideal partners, and start hitting them up. That's how John Dumas for Entrepreneur Life. I'd never met him. I listened to his podcast, but I didn't know him from Adam. I just saw him on Facebook. Like, hey man, what's your address? I want to send you a gift. And he just wrote back just the address, nothing else. So I like, all right, so we just add him to the list and then send out the package. And then 2 weeks later, got an email saying, hey man, I want you on the podcast. How's this day? And just it happened. So yeah, Facebook's good for getting people's initial attention. And then I think physical things in the mail is best to get their actual attention.
Got it. So how do you systematize or streamline that process of consistently sending those affiliates mail?
Yeah, so we just have an Excel sheet, and then every month we're trying to add new people. That's what I said. My Dream 100 list has grown to about 220 people. And just every time I meet new people, like I'm going to throw you on there now. Like every time we meet new people that are doing cool stuff, we just add them to the list. And then once a month, usually the very beginning of the month, unless I forget some months, which happens, but usually beginning of the month, I sit down and I just write a 4 or 5 page letter in Microsoft Word, find something cool we can shove in a package, send them to a mailing house, and then they just ship them all out. And within a month or within a week, I start getting people like, hey, I got your cool thing. And I'm like, all right, everyone's getting them now.
Cool. And so you're sending them through a mailing house, and then you're adding in little trinkets and a letter and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta make it, and otherwise no one's gonna want to open them. You send them cool stuff, they always open it and they're like, oh, cool. Like the Ferrari keychain one, I didn't know that was going to do as well as it did, but yeah, we sent everyone just like and then, by the way, it was hard to buy 230 Ferrari keychains on Amazon. Like one dude had like 10, so I buy 10, and then the next day like 10 more. So it took me like 2 or 3 months to get all of them here. It's kind of a nightmare. And some dude on Amazon's like, this is the hottest selling product ever. He probably ordered like 1 million of them on Amazon, and now he's got like 1 million in inventory. But yeah, so but that's kind of what we did. And then then we just have someone pack them all in. And you think about like direct mail seems really hard and complicated, but it's just as easy as email. Like I email over the Word doc. If we had a bunch of stuff, we just ship that somewhere, and then some dudes put it all together and mail it all out. And I don't know how it happens, but it's just like sending an email.
So is there always an ask? Is it just because, like, how often are you asking them to mail or asking them to do something like that?
Just depends. Like it's never like asking directly, just kind of saying, hey, this was cool. We got like last month I didn't do anything because we just finished the book launch and stuff, and I didn't want to just keep. So I just sent them. I wrote a pretty cool newsletter about some stuff, and so I just sent them a newsletter, some DVDs, a bunch of free stuff that was just in our shipping house, and I shipped it all out and said, hey, here's a gift. Thanks for being awesome. And then so we did that. We'll probably do that again this month maybe. And then we got a big webinar that's crushing it right now for ClickFunnels. So I'll probably just next month send out, or in 2 months send out a letter saying, hey, here's the stats. Here's the last 5 people to the webinar, how much money they made with conversion rates. And if you want to do it, give us a call. We'd love to have you on board. And so, by the way, here's a free cool thing because you're cool, And that's kind of it. The biggest thing, like with marketing, with especially I'm not a big fan of affiliate stuff because like I don't like to reciprocate. I don't like doing it. So it's hard that way. And so the only way to get people to like promote stuff is you got to do cool things. You got to have people think you're cool, and so the more cool stuff you can do to people like that, the more likely they are to help in return, So it's kind of how I look at it.
Got it. Now, did the book do better or worse than you expected?
Better. My goal initially was 15,000 copies. And so we did another 10, and it's still selling right now. I think we sold another 2,000 or 3,000 since the big launch part of it was done. It's just been there. And we're actually focusing on a whole radio campaign right now. We're going to be focusing on a couple other things, but still organically selling. But yeah, definitely did better than I had hoped for.
And so you obviously had 25,000 pre-release copies. What did that breakdown look like between pre-release and then launch week and then month one? Like what did that look like?
So it was, that's a good question. Most of the initial 25,000 all happened during that first month, because what happened as soon as launch day hit, then we had, based on like the publisher rules, like it was kind of annoying. So we had to like stop like our sales funnel and then transition the page over to like, where it said like buy on Amazon or Borders or whatever. Like otherwise they're not going to get any love and they're not going to put you on the bookshelves. Or I don't know. So as soon as launch day hit, then we had to put those up there. Then all sales started coming through all these channels. I don't honestly know how to track those. I have no idea how many. I know we get Excel sheets from the publisher every month that has like a bunch of, X amount of thousand that were sold through that. But I don't know. I didn't look close enough to know exactly where they came through. And then about 2 weeks later, then we flipped back on the normal sales funnel, and then we think we got like 3,000 or 4,000 come through since then. So yeah, that's kind of, Russell, you should know your numbers better on this.
Well, let's talk about the back end, because that's obviously the big money maker for this book launch and a big purpose behind this, and the reason you're able to give $20 CPAs and all these different things. So what did the back end look like off of the book?
Yeah. So I call this concept funnel stacking, right? So there were 3 core funnels that were in this process. And so the first funnel was just the book launch funnel, and it was a free book, but we made a little over $32 for every book we gave away. So that was the first funnel. So if you look at how it worked, the book was free plus shipping. And then on the order form, there was a bump that said, hey, do you want the audiobook version for an extra $37? And 22% of the people who bought the book also bought the audiobook version, which boom, gave us more upfront cash. Then we had upsell immediately after that for $197 for our traffic course, and then upsell for $297 for our webinar sales course. And so from that sequence, like I said, we averaged $32 per customer. So that was funnel number 1. And then when they finished that process, then about 14 days later, then we invited them to a webinar that is the webinar we use to sell ClickFunnels. And so it's kind of hard to know exactly, because the way the webinar funnel works, someone registers for the webinar, and then we have 3 video emails trying to get them to create a free trial of ClickFunnels. And then from that, then they jump on the webinar, and we sell a year access for $1,000 with some training and stuff like that. And so we typically sell about, for every $1,000 package we sell in the webinar, 3 people signed up for the trial. And so I think, I'm trying to remember exactly what the campaign was, because we did it twice during the launch, because it was, it's kind of staggered. Like 2 weeks came in, then we did the webinar, and then 2 weeks. So the webinar twice. I think that we did, it ended up being, I think about $600,000 from the actual webinar sales, if I remember right. And then, which would have been what, 600 people bought there, which means 1,800 people signed up for the $1 trial. And then now they're paying $97 a month. So never stick there. So I don't know exact cash flow, but that was the second funnel, which is where the first big majority of the money came from. Actually, the biggest part of the money came from that. And then after that campaign ends, then 2 weeks later, then we invite people to come apply for our coaching program. And it's kind of a soft sell where they watch a video from one of our students who's had success with us. They then can apply to work with me. And then we got guys in our team who call them up. And from there, we sell a $12,000, like a group coaching program, a $25,000 mastermind, and kind of one-on-one with me, or a $100,000 one, which is kind of depends on what kind of custom for who's buying it. Right. And so from that, I don't know the exact numbers, because that's like a longer sell. It's not like this happens sales right here. Some sales take a day. Some take 3 or 4 weeks, just kind of depends. But I would say conservatively, at least another 500,000 or more, have actually a lot more than that. Anyway, a lot more came from the back end. And that's where all my funnels eventually lead to that, because that's where we have a chance to work one-on-one and work really close with them, which is what we talk about in the book. The goal is to get them into your back end funnel so you can give them the biggest results and help serve them the most. So
that's your main thing. Would you say is the end goal of coaching, or would that be ClickFunnels?
So coaching, we make a lot more money up front. I realistically don't think I'll be coaching for more than another year or so. ClickFunnels is growing so rapidly that I just want time to keep doing one-on-one coaching, or not one-on-one, but the coaching stuff. And so, right now it is like the big back end. So the big high ticket thing. But a bigger goal for me, I think, is the ClickFunnels, because the continuity is so high and it's just recurring and it grows and takes way less effort on my side to fulfill on. So, but as of right now, definitely everything's leading to the high-end coaching. But I don't think that'll be that way probably in a year from now.
Got it. Because right when you sell them on ClickFunnels, it's they buy that book once, get into ClickFunnels, and that's just consistent revenue for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And ClickFunnels, since we launched ClickFunnels like 8 or 9 months ago. And so it was growing, and then the book just gave it this like shot of adrenaline. But we're right now we have 8,000 active members in ClickFunnels, and it's nuts. Like I've never been part of something. And that's not people who have like signed up and left. Like we've had over 30,000 who signed up and canceled, but 8,000 who are actively paying month in and month out. And it's we're adding about 200 trials a day right now, just organically from all this stuff. So like eventually, like it won't make any sense to do anything else besides that. It's getting close to that now, but
yeah,
it's just awesome.
So on the audiobook, that was one of the first things you talked about. How are you able to charge $37 and have people buy it so much? Is it because it was pre-release, or like, hey, how did you get away with that?
There's this magic chapter in here that actually teaches that. So there's a concept that we kind of pioneered a couple years ago called an order form bump, where someone goes to your order form, they fill it out, and it has to be like after they put their credit card number in, because before that it screws everything up. Like your conversions will drop and everything. But if they put in their credit card, then between the credit card form and the submit button, there's a little block that's like, hey, how would you like to have blah for an extra $37? And that's basically, it's like 2 sentences. People just say yes to that. Like it's like it's like you're at your grocery store checking out and you're like, oh, some gum. I might as well get some gum, right? It just works like that. And so, we still have that on the page now. People are still taking it about 22% during the launch took it. And it's pretty similar numbers now. But yeah, it's just they get the audiobook version so they can listen to it. And I'm the same way. Like if I had a book and an audiobook version, I'd buy it every time, because I consume things audiobook different, or more likely to consume it that way. But it's kind of a funny story. Like I was trying to figure out what my order form bump was going to be for like the entire pre-launch stuff. And then a week before launch, I was like, what if I did an audiobook version? And I'm like, I don't even know how to make an audiobook version. And so I'm like, well, I got to record it somewhere. So like, I guess I could like record it with my little mic here, but I'm like people are going to hear like all the other noise and driving by. So I'm calling around all over Boise to see if there's someone that has like a sound studio. And finally there's these dudes who, they record like, bands and CDs and stuff. But he's like, hey, next Wednesday, like there's no band coming in. So if you want, you can come record your book on Wednesday, but like you only have Wednesday. Like if it bleeds to Thursday, like there's bands coming in and you lost your shot. And I was like, okay, I need that, but I need someone to edit it and get it back to me by Friday, because we launch on Monday or whatever it was, right? And so I'd like pay way more for that. But anyway, I come in the thing and came at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I spent like, I don't know, 18 hours reading this whole book. It was like the worst, most painful thing of my life. And the guy's like, typical authors do this over like a week period of time. I'm like, we don't have a week. Like the launch is happening. And so I'd read the whole book, and like I kept like getting tired. So it's like take supplements to like wake me up and like keep energy so I could read the whole book in one sitting with like energy. And so we got it done. Then the guy had to edit it like crazy. And a couple parts I screwed up on. So I'd come back in and like say like one word like twice, and funnel. So you could like edit it right. And anyway, it was crazy. And then like a couple hours before launch, they sent me the final file. I'm like, oh, and we plugged it in and it just magically worked. But it worked great. Like you look at what's 22% of 25,000. What's that? 10% would be 25. So 5,000 people paid $37 for it. So that's like 100 and, it's over 6 figures by adding a little bump in there. So it was definitely worth a day of pain to do and put in there. And then people loved it. Like we had people who bought the book, and because it was pre-launch, they didn't get the book for 30 days or 45 days sometimes. So they had a chance to, some people said, I listened to the audiobook 10 times before the book showed up. Yeah, that's awesome. So I don't know, people liked it. And I had people who bought the book and then later come back and bought a second copy of the book just so they can get the audiobook the second time, just because like it's a huge value add that it's only available right there.
Got it. So what made you decide to do the audiobook yourself?
Time. I didn't know how to like hire someone to, and I do a lot of voiceovers for like my sales videos and my webinar, like those kind of things anyway. And so like I knew how to how I wanted it read. I'm kind of picky on things like that. I try to hire voiceover people in the past to read like sales scripts and they always screw it up. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And that's just kind of why, short timing. And I want to make sure that they said things right. Plus actually funny enough, like, as I was doing it, like I found the mistakes when I was reading through it. So I was editing while we did it. And then I got home that night, I was like sending to the editor. I'm like, I know like it's way past like my last deadline to send in tweaks, but I found like 8 more things we got to fix. And so they fixed things and then shipped, and then before they actually went to print, which was perfect. And then the only mistake we had was like there was a Kindle version for like 2 weeks that had like those 8 mistakes and finally got those fixed and then re-uploaded to Kindle or however, I don't know how that works, but yeah, it was kind of crazy, but it worked out in the end.
Now, did you ad lib or did you just straight to the book?
For the most part, I went straight to the book. There are a couple times, like I listened to one of Gary Vaynerchuk's books. A couple times he'd slip off cue and like drop some more gold. So I did that a couple times, not a lot, because just because of the stress of the moment. But I tried a couple times to be like just slip a little gold in there for those who are listening.
Yeah, that's cool. That's always fun from a listener standpoint.
Like, I got something new.
Yeah. And with Gary, it's like, oh, check out this rant, like, or whatever. It's always funny.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the back end a little bit more. You touched on this a little bit, but which part of that funnel, which product, or we can even go funnel or product specific, whichever you want. But which one made the most money and the most back end revenue from the book?
I think the one that made most was the webinar, which was the second funnel. Definitely was the least for me, because like we sell, we sell it for $1,000 and all the fulfillment's already done. So they bought it like they're in the software. So for me, that's my favorite just because I didn't have to do any extra work with the high-end coaching stuff. Like I have a lot of work, like I'm flying out, spend 2 days with these guys that that pay us $100,000. I got a lot of prep work to prepare for, so it's like, as far as like the most amount of money for the least amount of work, definitely the second piece, which was the webinar, selling $1,000 offer, which I think anyone can do. I had a call yesterday with a lady who's got a book that's taking off right now, but she has no monetization strategy at all. In fact, Tony Robbins introduced me to her and was like, you need to help this lady. and that's the thing. She had nothing to sell. I'm like, you got to figure out like some kind of how-to thing that you can sell, that you can plug into here. And she didn't have anything. We're trying to like figure out what it was, because her book was not fiction, but it was like whatever the genre is. They talk about stuff, but there's not like I don't want to say there's not a point, but there's not like here's how to do something cool, right? So I'm like, you have to take this thing you wrote that isn't a how-to, but figure out like how do you turn that into something sellable now, because that's what you'll pay for it. I mean, people will buy a novel and read it, but unless there's like a how-to component, they're not going to pay you $500 or $1,000 or $100,000 unless you got something there. So it's figuring out like what makes sense there, and selling stuff on webinars is typically pretty easy and fun, and yeah.
Got it. So, and I imagine that not only upfront in the first month or few months is the most value, but then also long-term lifetime customer value is probably a lot higher too, right?
Yeah, definitely for that. I mean, the nice thing about ClickFunnels is that our stick rate's so good. Like if somebody actually logs in software and does one thing, then they never leave. And so, yeah, for us, it's awesome. Sometimes continuity programs aren't that way. Some signs up and they leave in a month or two, but for us, definitely that's because the stick rate's so good. It's been the best.
And especially, I mean, you set up a funnel in there. It's kind of a big switching cost to leave, right? You got to reset up the whole thing.
That's something Bill Glazer used to always pound in my head. He said, if you want a good continuity program, you have to have big pain and disconnect. And I've tried for 10 years to have one, but I've never had like a really good one until now. Now it's like, when you build your business in there, like I could not live without ClickFunnels right now. Like if I came back to myself and said, Russell, I want you to pay $1 million a month, I'd have to pay it. You know what I mean? Because everything I own is in there. Not that we're ever going to do that, or that we would, but that's kind of the goal, is make something so good that people can't live without it. And if you do that, then they'll stick for forever, hopefully.
That's why we're still in it.
Yeah.
So you touched a little bit on this. I want to dive down just a little bit deeper. You said webinars because those are easy, fun, and always convert like crazy. You got a couple of tips for how you crush webinars and how they convert so well?
Yeah. In fact, in the book, I share my webinar script, but actually, if your listeners want, we have the funnel, but I have a script that literally took me. It's not mine. It's me working with probably 20 different selling from stage coaches to make my pitch perfect. And I call it the perfect webinar. And it's a compilation of me standing up on stage in front of people and selling and bombing over and over and over again and getting humiliated and not making any money. And then having amazing mentors say, hey, try this and try this. And then me going through courses and 10 years of all of this, to the point where I got something where we call it the perfect webinar, because like I can plug anything in. In fact, there's this really cool supplement that I'm obsessed with it right now. I've got all my friends and family members on it. It's like the best thing in the world. And I was like, I got to sell this because it's just too good. I'm like, how did I sell this? I'm like, oh, plug it into the perfect webinar. And I just took the script, plug it in, and it just works. Like it sells everything. We sold the certification program at our live event, did $500,000 in sales from the perfect webinar. Like I literally took out the script, plugged in the pieces, and then it just works. So there's my pitch for the perfect webinar. You guys can get it for free. Like we give away, it's $4. We ship you out a physical page with a DVD teaching the whole thing. If you search for perfect webinar, you'll see it. But that's it. And it's really simple process. Basically, the way the script works is we help you have to figure out like what are the 3 core beliefs that your prospect has that are wrong. If you can figure out those 3 things, you've got $1 million pitch. And everyone's got that, right? If you're in the weight loss space, we just got a perfect webinar working for a guy in the weight loss space. And so we figure out like, what are the 3 core beliefs that your prospects have that are wrong? Like if you can figure out those 3 things, and everyone's got them, right? Then then the content of the training, basically, I wonder if I have a copy of the script right here. Probably don't, dang it. Well, somewhere I got to have it. Anyway, if I could show it to you, you'd see it right here. But that's what, because most people they get into doing their webinar and they're like teaching all this stuff and trying to show how smart they are and trying to do, and that doesn't serve people. Like what serves people is saying like, these are the 3 things that you think are right, that are wrong. And then you show like, this is what's wrong. And then you flip it and you teach them the correct way. Like this is what it actually is. And they're like, whoa. And they have an epiphany, right? You take the second thing and you show them their false belief. You break it, you flip it around, give it another epiphany. Like, whoa. And then same thing, number 3, you do that 3 times in a row. After that, pretty much they'll say yes to anything you tell them about, because you just proven like their paradigm is wrong, and you shift that paradigm 3 times for them. And then you transition. There's a really easy way to transition to how we sell it and how we close it. And I would say we probably have at least 100 of our coaching clients right now who all they do is a perfect webinar, and they do it every week. Like it's like a system. Every Thursday they do the webinar. They spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday driving leads into the webinar. Thursday they do the webinar. Friday, Saturday, Sunday they do the replays, and it starts over on Monday. We've got one of my favorite one. Her name is Liz Benny. She lives in New Zealand. She's doing between 40 and 50 grand a week in and week out consistently. And 6 months ago, she didn't have a webinar. She took the perfect webinar, plugged it in, boom, and it's just off to the races. And so, yeah, when you learn that, and again, the script's in the book, but if you also want like the DVD training, it's I think it's perfectwebinarsecrets.com. And for $4, we ship out the DVD, the thing, and then you just got it. And I always tell people, like, if I could give like one gift to everyone, like that's it. Like more people have made more money in our coaching programs with that little piece of paper than anything else we've done. And it's just magic. So that's how you sell on the webinar. You just follow it and don't screw it up, because if you just do it, it just works every time.
That's cool. I'm definitely gonna check that out, because I was even thinking as you were talking about that, like for our business, right? Self-publishing school. Like, what are the core beliefs? I don't have enough time to write a book. I'm not an expert. I can't write it. I don't have an audience. I can't sell it.
Boom. You got what you needed.
Boom. Awesome.
You just readjust their mindset 3 times, and anything else you ask them to do, they'll say yes to. It's amazing. And again, I just want to say, like, I'm not taking credit for it other than me compiling this from some amazing mentors. Like each piece, I can tell you exactly who I learned things from. And I talk about it in the train DVD. I give credit to everyone, but man, it just works. And yeah, it's awesome. You'll love it, man.
That's great. A couple more questions. What's one surprise way on the back end of the book that you didn't expect, but that you made money off of it?
That's a good question. One surprise way. Well, one was the dude who called us up and was like, "Hey, I want you to come to my office for 2 days." And I was like, "I don't have time for that." So I was like, "Tell him $100,000 will do it." And he said, "All right." And he wrote a check right then. I was like, crap. All right. That was surprising to me. Another one that's kind of fun is this little picture on here. So this picture came from this video we shot, which was kind of just like a fun, dorky video. I met this new video guy. And he was like, "I want to do something really epically big." So we did a shot. It's like 13 seconds on the sales video. You'll see it. But it took us 6 hours to set up the shot, get the lights, the fog lights. Like it was 6 hours of setup time. We sat down and filmed for like 30 seconds and broke the whole thing down. If you look at the book launch, you see that scene and I think it turned out amazing. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And so afterwards, like we made these t-shirts, just had a screenshot of this and it said, "I split test" on it. And that's the shirt I sent out to all these people that had that. And anyway, I can't tell you how many people have like seen all these. I mean, my Dream 100, like all the top marketers in the world, and they're always wearing the shirt that says "I split test" on it. And everyone keeps coming like, "Where do I get that shirt? Where do I get that shirt?" And so we set up, I don't even know where it's at. Someone set up a page for me that had the shirt people could just buy. And we sold tons of these things that are just like the shirt says "I split test" with the with that picture underneath it. So that was kind of surprising. Yeah, so those are probably the two biggest surprises.
So all those hours spent setting up that shoot were worth it.
Yeah, and funny thing, like at the time, I didn't know we were gonna use it for the book. Like it was just like this random thing because I don't even know why sometimes we do things just because it seems like it'll be cool, but we don't know why. And after it came back, I was like it was so cool. I was like, I want to show this to everyone, but I'm like, but I can't because I got to use something really, really cool. And that's about the time I was working on the cover design. And I was like, wait a minute. So I grabbed a still shot in that video. I sent to the design guy using the cover and he put in there. I was like, oh, like that is, I was so excited. I was just going nuts. I was like, that's exactly what it is. And then, but I had to sit on that video clip for like 6 months, not show it to anyone because I knew it was going to be the book launch. And it killed me. I wanted to show it so bad because I thought it was so cool.
That's great. And what's one unexpected way that the business has improved or the business has benefited off of the book?
Let's see. I think that I'd say the biggest one is that it's brought in a different type of customer to us. The type of person who reads books is different than the kind of person who watches like a video sales letter and just buys something, right? The caliber is different. I have one of our coaching clients. He gets all his leads from podcasts. Does no other advertising source. And he said that the reason why is he shut off everything else because like someone who has an iPhone and they listen to podcasts during the day is like a higher level person, right? Like people don't have any money, aren't listening to podcasts typically. Usually they're watching cartoons and eating cereal or whatever, right? But like the higher person, the person who's like your dream client is. And so for him, that's like podcasts is where his dream clients come from. For me, it's the same kind of thing. Like someone who actually sits down and reads this entire book, it's a different level person. And so it's attracted different types. It's attracted people into our business that can afford more to invest in our coaching programs. People who are more likely to fulfill on like using ClickFunnels, right? It's just brought a higher quality, higher caliber customer into our world. I think that's the biggest thing. And so, I mean, if you think about it, books are scarce. Like I got this entire wall is wrapped in books. Like I'm obsessed with books, but not many people nowadays are, right? Like I walk in my friends' houses and they have TVs that are bigger than my bookshelves. And at my house, I've got little tiny TVs. I'm like, you guys' TVs are huge. Like anyway, and I think that people who read are just, it's a different caliber and I think a better person. And that's the kind of customers I want in my world, people that are readers. So
that's great. Now, final parting tip for people thinking about writing and publishing their first book.
Don't wait 10 years like I did because it would have been good. That's part of, I think a bigger part is just, is really looking at it from an overall strategy point. Because the book in and of itself is probably not gonna make you any kind of money. But if you think through it ahead of time, like we did, like I spent a lot of time thinking like, what's the process? Like where we can take somebody through and using the book as a tool just to provide an insane amount of value. So that way that people will naturally want to send up. Like don't write a book that's going to be a crappy book. Some people write just books that are dumb. Like write a good book so that when someone reads it, you don't want someone to read a book like, oh, that wasn't that good. Because then it ruins all the purposes you have in writing a book, right? You want to read a book and be like, wow, that was really, really good. Because as soon as they do that, then they want like, what's the next thing I have? Like where can I go from that? Like, That way when you do a webinar 2 weeks later, like, man, I want to be on this webinar because like that book was amazing, and then they want to get the coaching. People will naturally want to ascend if you blow their minds. And so use it as a tool to do that. Use it as a tool to really give people an amazing experience. And if you do that, then everything else will work. Like people will naturally want to give you more money and get closer to whatever you have to offer because they had such a good experience initially with the book.
Got it. That's great, man. Well, Russell, thanks so much. This has been awesome. I know I've learned a lot. Hopefully people watching have as well. Before we kick off, where can people go to find out more about you or the book or ClickFunnels, wherever you want to send them?
Yeah. If you go to .comsecrets.com, so spelled out DOTCOM secrets.com, there will be a link to the book funnel. There'll be a link, I'm sure, to ClickFunnels, I hope. Pretty sure. Anyway, most of my stuff will spread off from there, or just go to clickfunnels.com to check that out. But yeah, that's probably the easiest way.
Awesome. Russell, thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you can be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. All right, number 1, I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help the podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. If you're on the fence about scheduling a publishing consultation call with my team, maybe you're not quite ready for that, I've got some free training that I think will be really helpful for you. All right, all you have to do is go to register to sign up. Go to selfpublishing.com/free training. When you do, you're also going to get a free digital copy of my new book, Published. And on that training, you're going to learn the next steps of how to implement with your book. So how to write, how to publish, how to launch successfully. So go to register right now at selfpublishing.com/free training. I'll see you there.